Gentlemen, and welcome to our webinar. We'd like to encourage as much audience participation as possible, so please move your mouse down to the bottom of your screen, click on the Q&A button, and enter your city name, just so we can get an idea of who's in our audience today. Our first speaker is the President and CEO of Helius Medical Technologies. Please welcome Mr. Phil Deschamps.
Helius Medical Technologies is developing an innovative medical device called PoNS. It's a portable neuromodulation stimulator. And what this device does is it helps people recover from neurological symptoms of disease or trauma. Hello, my name is Phil Deschamps. I'm the President and CEO of Helius Medical Technologies. We trade on the NASDAQ as HSDT and trade on the Toronto Stock Exchange as HSM. Helius Medical Technologies is a company that's designed around the PoNS device. The PoNS device is a device that helps people recover from neurological symptoms of disease or trauma. Things like MS, things like traumatic brain injury, Parkinson's, stroke, and all these kinds of things. So one of the indications that we have for the PoNS in Canada is for MS. MS is a debilitating disease that affects people in their 30s and 40s primarily, and then lasts for the rest of their lives. Some of the important symptoms that some of these people feel are things like the quality of their ability to walk, or their gait, as it's known in medicine, is affected. Some people feel profound fatigue. All of those, unfortunately, with people with MS tend to get worse as they go forward. There are a couple of kinds of treatment for MS today, powerful drugs that are designed to try and retard the disease progression as we go forward. But unfortunately, those tend not to have a significant effect on the symptoms themselves. So it's very, very gratifying for us to have a technology called PoNS that, when combined with physical therapy, helps people recover from neurological symptoms of MS. The particular symptom that we've got an indication for is for the improvement in the quality of your gait, so your ability to walk. So imagine for a person who has MS, very busy lives in your 30s and 40s, and now we have a product that may help them be able to improve their walking. So we just received an indication in Canada for gait disorder tied to MS. There are 93,000 patients that have MS in Canada. So this gives us a wonderful opportunity over the next 3 or 4 years to penetrate 10 to 15% of that market. That then translates to an addressable market in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Since medical device companies like ours are evaluated usually as a multiple of sales, this would certainly translate into a much larger enterprise value for us. The second value inflection point for our company at this precise time is the fact that we recently got breakthrough designation from the FDA. What it means is that we essentially have the opportunity to work with FDA much more closely to speed the development of this product and to review the application more quickly. It means that we could potentially get our indication in the US more quickly, and that adds an enormous value to our shareholders, because ultimately in the US there are over 1 million patients who are diagnosed with MS. The third important value inflection point is in Canada we have been cleared for balance deficit tied to a mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. There's 350,000 patients in Canada that have this particular diagnosis. This makes this an addressable market of over $3 billion, and over the next 3 years, we plan to penetrate that business between 5 and 10% of that population. So this all translates into huge upside for potential investors in Helius at this particular time. Well, thank you very much for your attention. Once again, Helius Medical Technologies trades on the NASDAQ as HSDT and on the Toronto Stock Exchange as HSM.
Chatting with these two gentlemen right here about a big idea when it comes to medical breakthroughs. Montel Williams, popular TV host, a familiar face to many, and Ryan Darcy, president and neuroscientist, by the way, from Health Tech Connects. Now, this technology, get us started. This is helping people with traumatic brain injury, but this new device, Ryan, maybe give us some context. What is it, and how is it going to help people?
So the device is called the PoNS, which stands for Portable Neuromodulator Stimulator. And what it does is it actually stimulates your tongue with just a weak electrical, completely non-invasive. It's sort of like pop rocks or champagne, you know, that's what it feels like. And that actually drives neuroplasticity in your brain when it's paired with physical therapy, particularly around balance if you've had a mild to moderate traumatic brain injury.
And see, people here in Canada need to understand that there's about 350,000 people in this country today suffering from mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. 20,000 people every single year are diagnosed. And one of the main symptoms is a balance deficit. And a lot of people don't pay attention to it until they are injured, but once they're injured, it can affect every aspect of your life. I mean, you're taking a look at a woman right here who's Jerry, who literally had a bicycle car accident. And what you just saw was her before using the device. That's her right there before using the device, where she had difficulty turning her head, looking side to side, had difficulty navigating spaces if there was anything near her. And then after only 4 or 5 days of use of the device, it changes her life. We've seen in our studies that 83% of participants have gotten better. 56% of them have literally gone back to normal balance after only 14 weeks of a trial.
You found this how many years ago, Montel?
I found this device, luckily stumbled upon it at the University of Wisconsin back in 2010 and went through a double-blind study back then. And I have been using the device every day, and it's literally turned my life around. Now, a lot of people know that I have MS. I also last year suffered a stroke. Though we don't have indications yet for stroke and MS, we have done multiple clinical trials with MS, stroke, cerebral palsy, and we're starting to see that this is literally impacting anything neurologically, from the brain up. So we're doing true brain plastic changes.
Well, this is an interesting time for this device to be rolled out in Canada for the very first time, because Health Canada has approved it for use, and the FDA down south, they want more information before they're going to go ahead and approve this application. So what does this mean about the science and research being done in Canada to give people hope that have really struggled with major brain injuries?
Yeah, we're really excited about that, because we actually, it gives us the opportunity to show that Canadian science is leading the way, and there are many groups around the world that are doing this research. But we're putting in place the critical research that's showing that the PONS is helping the brain. It's helping when it's paired with rehabilitation. Right now it's available to you on label around balance deficits if you have mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. But what we're doing is working to really expand that and address and show that it's actually changing your brain activity, it's helping your patient outcomes. People are getting better. We're making brains better.
And people have to understand, up until this device, there was nothing other than physical therapy that was actually helping people who had mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. Now this device is proving that there's something that works. So people who hear my voice need to get up on, what is it, hero.ca, find out if they qualify, contact the center in Surrey, contact the center in Montreal. Get out here. You don't have to be the way you are. You can change your life.
Yeah. Well, you've been a huge advocate of this, and I'm going to ask you about your mindset back in the late 90s when you got your diagnosis with MS, because we've had a lot of champions on this couch that talked about getting a diagnosis from doctors where hope was non-existent. What did doctors tell you, and how did that change, and how is your reality different now?
You know, one of the strangest things was, when I was first diagnosed, I had a doctor look me in my face and say, I'd be in a wheelchair in 10 years. And I'm like, wait a minute, dude, you got a crystal ball? If you were God, I wouldn't be sick. So I don't trust you with that. And I've also always felt my whole life that I'm the one who owns the definition of who I am. Yes, I have MS, but MS doesn't have me. So if I work as hard as I can work, I can impact my symptoms. And as soon as this device came along, that gave me not just hope, but the reality was the more work I put into it, the harder I work, the more it gave back. And that's what I want people to understand. They can do the same.
Your courage is going to help a lot of people watching right now to think that they can have hope and do what you did.
Yeah. We named hero.ca after people like Montel. It's H-E-U-R-O, and it's because, to your point, it's your job to change your brain. You can take whatever your situation is and drive that into a better circumstance. And you think about balance. I mean, balance, okay, what's balance? Well, what I love about this hero story is that when Montel comes out here, he's snowboarding in Whistler, right?
Yes.
And we can create technologies that can help and assist along with balance. But at the end of the day, it really is about driving your own neuroplasticity, your own brain's innate ability to rewire itself and recover.
Let me go back to one thing you said, though. Canadians can lead the way, not just for Canada, but the rest of the world, the entire world. This is something that right now, the more people who come up and try to see if they can actually participate in the studies that are going on here will change the way the world approaches brain science forever.
It's an opportunity. You're helping share this big idea. I appreciate you being so raw and vulnerable with it, Montel.
Thank you.
Ryan, thank you.
My name is Phil Deschamps, and I'm President and CEO of Helius Medical Technologies, and I'm really proud to introduce you to our company today. Helius is built around a product called PoNS, or Portable Neuromodulation Stimulator. This is a novel medical device that, when combined with physical or cognitive therapy, helps people recover from neurological symptoms of disease or trauma. That's things like MS or Parkinson's or traumatic brain injury. So it has an enormous amount of potential applications. How it actually works, it has two separate parts. The first one is called the pulse generator. That's what this is. And then the second is the mouthpiece. The pulse generator generates an electrical signal that flows through the top of the tongue. Then the signal travels through the trigeminal nerve to the back of the brain and puts the brain into what's called a plastic state. That plastic state enables the brain to bypass the areas that are damaged by disease or trauma so that ultimately the brain can find a better way to accomplish what's been damaged by that disease. Just recently, we received breakthrough designation from the FDA. What that is a designation that essentially establishes the fact that PoNS is an important medical device that satisfies a high unmet medical need. And to borrow the words of FDA directly, it offers the manufacturers an opportunity to interact with FDA experts to efficiently address the topics in terms of the review phase. And it's also designed to help speed the development process. So we're extremely pleased to be able to do this because ultimately MS in the US is a very large market, which I'll describe in a couple of minutes. That was our regulatory status in the US. Now turning to Canada, we have had an indication. We received our indication for MS in Canada in March of this year. So unfortunately, right when the COVID the shutdown happened. But it's given us an opportunity over the last several months to work with the authorized clinic system in Canada to get ready for when everything reopens. The second indication that we have in Canada is for the treatment of balance deficit tied to mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. So just in the TBI indication, this is an addressable market of over $3 billion. The data that we have in MS is quite compelling. We did a study back in 2014 looking at two arms. The first arm was an active PoNS machine combined with physical therapy, and the second was a placebo PoNS. What we see is over a 14-week treatment program, patients in the active arm were about double what was seen in the placebo arm. This was highly statistically significant, and this is the backbone of the data that we submitted to Canada for our approval, and then we will submit to the US through the breakthrough designation program. We also did a study to validate that first study at the Montreal Neurological Institute back in 2016. As you can see in this particular slide, the active PoNS showed a statistical significance between the baseline and the end of the study, and the placebo PoNS did not. Further, when we looked at the patients who had received the placebo, we gave them the active PoNS, and lo and behold, people from their baseline to the end also saw a statistical difference. So this is very important work that essentially supports our submission to the FDA, which gives us a lot of confidence that ultimately the product will be cleared. We have been treating patients in Canada for the last year and a half for patients who had a balance deficit in mild to moderate traumatic brain injury. Now, these patients had had an injury for on average over 3.5 years and had already done a full course of physical therapy and have been deemed to have plateaued. So they were not going to get any better. So what we found in this important clinical trial is even after 3.5 years since their injury and having completed a full course of physical therapy, these patients were still profoundly disabled. And over the 14-week treatment program, we were able to take those patients with that profound disability and a prospect of a lifetime of that disability, and in 14 weeks, put them into the normal range of balance. This is an indication that we received over a year ago, and sometimes it's really difficult to translate those clinical trials into the real world. I'm very happy to report that of all of the patients treated, we seem to be seeing exactly those kinds of results in the real world through the authorized clinics in which we've deployed in Canada. These are huge addressable markets in Canada and the US. The TBI market in Canada is 350,000 patients. And at our revenue per patient, that's a $3 billion opportunity. And for MS, the clearance that we obtained back in March, this is about 93,000 patients, so another huge addressable market for us to be able to treat once the clinic system reopens here in the next several weeks. In the last couple of years, we've also gathered data in cerebral palsy, and we've gathered data in stroke. These are the next two indications that we'll be seeking from Health Canada, and once we get our first clearance in the US, we'll continue to be able to generate data to be able to get those other clearances. So in summary, why Helius and why consider the stock now? Number one, our product works really well, and it works in the real world just like it demonstrated in the clinical trials. Number two, huge addressable market in Canada, 350,000 patients for the TBI indication, 93,000 patients for the MS indication, both addressable markets well over $1 billion. And then finally, the breakthrough designation that we just obtained from US FDA essentially gives us more confidence that there is a legitimate path for our first US clearance. That would be for the treatment of MS. Where in the US, there's over 1 million people who have this devastating disorder. So this is a particularly interesting time for Helius Medical Technologies, and since these dynamics create the environment for future growth and future opportunity for our stock to appreciate. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Phil. Wow, that's quite a story. All the best with your noble quest. Ladies and gentlemen, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and ask Phil any questions you may have for him, and someone will get back to you in the next day or two. Our next speaker is the President and CEO of Western Magnesium. Please welcome Mr. Sam Ataya.
Imagine a world that has spent the last 50 years organizing itself around global relationships, partnerships, and supply chains that serve the best interest of a past global community. Global interactions that worked well for the time being because they were held together by a system of multilateral institutions, equally beneficial relationships, and common sense practices that brought with them safety and security. Now imagine that same world was not as secure and stable as once thought, and all it took to discover this was for the world to be exposed to merely one global pandemic. This single exposure to a global pandemic brought to light a new uncertainty, an uneasy political risk, as well as a breakdown in fair and equitable trade practices. It put national security back into focus in a manner not seen in generations due to imbalances and the misaligned leverage it created. When significant global changes force us to rethink how to best do what we do, or when global significant changes are needed for us to feel more stable and more secure, it is almost always the case that technology and innovation lead the way for a better and more stable world around us. It is with this in mind that I'd like to introduce myself, my company, and the very exciting and innovative things that we are doing today. Hi, my name is Sam Ataya, and I'm the Executive President and CEO of a publicly listed firm called Western Magnesium Corporation. For over a century, magnesium metal has been coveted by the industrial manufacturing industry due to its enormous range of uses and importance. In today's age, where many of the concepts that apply to the word innovation are based on improvements pertaining to lighter, faster, stronger, safer, magnesium has never had a more vital role to play in technological improvements. The good news is that magnesium is relatively abundant in the United States. The bad news is that there is a lack of supply due to research and clean magnesium production technologies. This in turn means that 85% of the world's supply comes from just one country, and that one country is China, with its weak environmental practices, virtually non-existent oversight, and old mining practices that result in extremely high levels of toxic pollutants. Western Magnesium, with our proprietary technology, will not only bring back the production of magnesium metal into the United States, and thus close one more jeopardized threat to our increasing national security. Unlike any other traditional miner, our technology is politically friendly, because it's not just made in America, but also generates zero toxic byproducts, and thus making it green tech, and thus making it bipartisan. As an innovative technology company, our story is an exciting and intriguing one. As an American production company, our story is a smart and strategic one. And as an investment opportunity, our story is truly one of a kind. We believe the three top reasons why there has never been a better time to invest in Western Magnesium are: 1, we will be producing metal in the next 6 months. 2, we will secure our first commercial site in the next 6 months. And 3, we will be moving to S1 reporting, which will open us up to investment that will include all investment professionals in the United States. The future of America's national security is our company's leading technology. The future of an environmentally cleaner America is our company's green magnesium. And the future of American-produced magnesium is Western Magnesium. Western Magnesium is traded on the TSX Venture and the OTCQB under the symbols WMG and MLYF, respectively. My name is Sam Ataya, and I'm the President and CEO of Western Magnesium Corporation. I'd like to tell you a little bit about our company. 9 years ago, we gathered a group of scientists and engineers and brought them together for the purposes of bringing back the production of magnesium metal into the United States, focusing on industries such as the auto, aerospace, airline, eco-friendly technology companies such as car battery companies, the US government, and military. We really had to prove 3 concepts at the time. Number 1, we had to be the most price competitive to the largest producer of magnesium metal today, which is China. Number 2, our technology had to be scalable, which currently it is not. You see, there's been no technological developments in magnesium metal production for the last 60 years, and no new plant built in the United States in the last 50 years. So you either build a big plant or you don't build it at all. Our technology, however, is scalable. We can build a 3,000 metric ton plant in a rural community serving industry in that rural community, or we can build a big 500,000 metric ton plant in the middle of Detroit servicing industries such as the auto industry. So our technology is scalable. And finally, and perhaps this is the most important one, we are an eco-friendly technology. The process of producing magnesium metal today is somewhat to extremely toxic. Yet I'm happy to say that our technology is zero waste and close to, if not completely, zero toxicity. We not only meet, but we beat EPA requirements. In fact, I'm happy to say that we won't just be the greenest magnesium metal plant in the world, we will simply be the greenest metal plant in the world. 3 years ago, we proved concept, and we now have moved from an R&D state to a production state. But let me take a step back and talk about magnesium metal and why it's so important today. Magnesium metal is 80% lighter than steel, 60% lighter than titanium, and 33% lighter than aluminum, yet its weight to strength ratio is just as strong as steel. And because we're able to produce it in bar form, metal, in a pellet form, or a molten form, we're able to address all industries in the US and their needs. Because we're able to do so, we're able to deal with industries that have assembly line manufacturing and need a continuous supply of magnesium metal. Let me tell you how important lightweight materials are today. Because all these industries are facing EPA regulatory issues for their carbon output, lightweight materials are the best possible way to help those industries meet these EPA requirements. Let's take, for example, the auto industry. Let's take the Ford F-150. If we were simply to change 5 parts on it, headlights, taillights, the tailgate, the support beam, and the dashboard, it would lighten the load of the Ford F-150 by 500 pounds. That is a significant weight reduction, helping the Ford F-150 meet future EPA requirements. It is with this in mind that we are building and creating and producing magnesium metal in the United States to help those industries. And because lightweight materials are so important today, there's a very big demand for this magnesium metal. Yet here's the problem that we face. In the world today, there's only 1 million metric tons of metal being produced. That's it. 1 million metric tons, and 85% of it is produced by China. So we have very little control of resource production and manufacturing within the United States to address those industries and supply them with the metal that is needed. When China came into the market in the United States in 1995, they decimated the marketplace for magnesium metal. In fact, by 1997, 6,000 casting companies had shut their doors, and that was it. The US government had not moved or reacted enough in time to help the magnesium industry, because at that time, lightweight materials were not so important. But today they are. In fact, let me tell you that the US government has, under this administration, has issued Executive Order 13817, which makes magnesium metal a national security interest issue and has put it on the 32 most protected metals list. Not only that, there's a 114% tariff on any magnesium metal entering the United States. And the US government is hoping that companies such as ourselves would answer the call and really invest and build manufacturing plants that produce magnesium metal servicing these industries. And that's what we're doing today. We have a perfect situation to build out our company, because not only is the industry demand so high, but also the government is helping support the build out of our industry. So when we moved from an R&D state to a production state, we really had to do a few things, and I'll call that phase 1. First, we had to bring in a really good team to manage that production side. And I'm happy to say that we brought in an excellent team with great experience to help us move to the next level. We also needed external expertise. We needed to work with the best of the best, law firms, accounting firms, PR firms, to make sure that not only did we have the best advice moving forward, but that we also understood and navigated through the dark waters of dealing with big industry, and to understand how our teams are going to move forward with those big industries. There's a lot of work to do. We had the internal and external expertise, and now we felt that we can move forward in a good way to build out the big plants in the United States. We have our own IR team because we didn't feel that we were ready yet to go into institutional investors. We wanted to make sure that we put our money where our mouth was and make sure that we put everything in place to that point where we felt that investors would want to come in and invest in our company. And finally, we re-domiciled the company to the United States. We're a Delaware-based corporation out of the US. We're trading on the TSXV in Canada primarily and on the OTCQB. So phase one was a very busy phase of making sure that we had the right people, because the technology that we have has never been built. We have big engineering firms that are certifying and stamping our work, making sure that what we're building is right and we can move forward with it. So now we've gone into phase two. Where are we in phase two? We are building out our first commercialized pilot plant. We will be producing metal in the next 6 months. Now, for most investors that invest in industrial technology companies, they're waiting 2, 3, 4 years to see any results. But remember, we've been working real hard and we've started the build out of that commercialized pilot plant. Once we produce that metal, we'll be able to send it out to the different industries: auto, aerospace, airline, again, eco-friendly technology companies such as battery companies, US government and military, and they'll test and certify, and they'll come back to us once it's certified, and we'll know two things. What form do they want this metal in? Do they want it in pellet, bar, or molten form? And how much metal they want. And that analytics will help us build the big plants that we're going to build across the United States. Number two, we started negotiating with different states in the US with their governors and economic development committees to see what is the best first site where we're going to put our big commercialized plant. And I'm happy to say that we've narrowed the field, and in the next 4 to 6 months, we'll be signing with one of those states. And finally, we're going to become S1 reporting within the next 5 to 6 months. That process, which is an important process for our company, will help us do two things. One, it will help us navigate from the current TSXV and the OTCQB into a major board like NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange. But it'll also open the door for investment from big hedge funds and equity groups that now can invest in us because we're S1 reporting. This is a very important step for us, and it's a very important step for our shareholders and investors that are going to invest in our company today, because there is a roadway, a pathway that helps us to get onto the major boards. At Western Magnesium, we believe that we've done everything in our power to make sure that we are ready, and that we're ready to go with investment, we're ready to go to build out our plants, and that we're ready to start the process of producing, manufacturing magnesium metal for the different industries in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Ladies and gentlemen, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, ask any questions you may have for Sam, and someone will get back to you in the next day or two. Our next speaker is the CEO of Affinity Metals. Please welcome Mr. Rob Edwards.
British Columbia's Sullivan mine operated for almost 100 years, and it produced $50 billion worth of lead, silver, and zinc. At Affinity Metals, we have the potential to find the next Sullivan mine. My name is Rob Edwards, and I'm the CEO of Affinity Metals. Affinity Metals trades on the TSX Venture Exchange under the ticker symbol AFF. Affinity Metals has a 100% interest in the Regal property, located in the Kootenay Arc Trend near Revelstoke, British Columbia. The property is home to 2 past-producing mines and a pre-43-101 historic resource. We've identified 2 world-class targets on the Regal project. The primary target was identified using 2 independent geophysical surveys, one being the ZTEM target and one being an acoustical technology. This target is large in size. In fact, it shares some of the same geological signatures as the Sullivan mine. We believe that now is the time to invest in Affinity Metals. We have assays coming back from our 2019 drill program that will be due very soon. We also have all of the geology and all of the geophysics pointing towards a very exciting target, much like the Sullivan mine. Affinity Metals also has a very tight share structure, with only 33 million shares outstanding, and management and close business associates hold approximately 85% of the shares outstanding. Affinity Metals is listed on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol AFF.
We are trying to be BC's next premier silver, lead, and copper deposit. We are in BC, and our company is fairly new, and you may not have heard of us because we've really kept things quiet for the last 2 years. We haven't told a lot of people. We've kind of restructured the company, got things ready to go in order for hopefully what we think is the bull run of the metals, and hopefully that's a sustained run coming forward. So let me tell you a little bit about Affinity. We have a share structure that has, and that's a little out of date because we just closed about half of our private placement, so we now have about 33 million shares outstanding. And we also, the nice thing about it is that we have 85% of that held by management and our close business associates. We've been in the business for almost 15 years with other exploration company that we've started and taken public and been through the ringer with. It's subsequently doing well, but it's been a long, tough bear market for all of us. And so we've learned a lot of lessons during that time. And Affinity's kind of a nice fresh start with some education behind us. So we sustained and put together a great management team. We have good, solid backers behind us as far as our initial financings. And we're looking to go forward with a fresh new company and tell the story. Nice thing is as I said, we haven't done any marketing, so the story is new, and so it gives lots of upside with a tight share structure going forward and the property that we have. So, what's our property? What's the geology? We have the Regal property, which is in Revelstoke, British Columbia. It's just north of Revelstoke. And you can see we have some pretty good neighbors there. That's the first picture that comes up. But the property itself is very large. It's 8,800 hectares. And so it even has a little bit different geology from the east to the west side. We have some good neighbors. On the property itself, we have past producing mines. There's actually 3 of them, but there's 2 that are very notable. One, the Regal mine on the bottom, being the southwest corner, has some past production. It also has some pre-43-101 resources that initially attracted us to the property. Also have the Alco mine, which was mined small scale. There's adits there and good geology, high-grade veins, and that's what initially attracted us there. Some good neighbors. We have Rockmaster. You may not have heard of them. They're a new up-and-comer, but that was the JNL property previously. That property has 2 million ounces of gold already proven, and they're taking that property. They just did a deal on that and purchased it, optioned it for $44 million, and are moving that forward, and they think there's lots of room for expansion. So the geological trend that it's in is the Kootenay Arc, and that runs kind of up towards that property, all the way up from that Rockmaster property, down towards the Sullivan mine. Though technically the Sullivan isn't in what they call the Kootenay Arc, it is an offshoot of it and kind of an anomaly, but it's along that same mineralization zone. Okay? So that gives us an idea of the property itself and why we chose that. We chose it from, I mean, during the time that we were setting up this company, we probably had 70 or 80 companies properties come across our desk. And it was a good time to pick up properties. We got it for a cheap price, and now we have the opportunity to take it forward. One of the nice things that we also had from it, and I've talked a little bit about the neighbors already, there's the JNL deposit, there's some of the technical resource amounts that are there. And the Regal mine, there's a little bit of the historic resource there in its detail, as high as 71 grams per ton of silver, and lead and copper and tin, and even some tungsten credits in that. So, when we got this property, we had a ZTEM survey that was already done on it. It showed some really good targets. You can see the red outlines there and long linear targets. It was our fortunate opportunity that this property, this survey was actually done previous to our getting the property. It cost about $500,000 and we got the benefit of it. The guys before us, they were technical people, and in the 2011 they weren't able to raise money and they lost it back to the prospector. We knew the prospector very well. He knew that we had our company and that we were ready to go and take it forward, and he says, look, I think you should look at this. It's a good opportunity. I think it's perfect for what you're doing. So we took it, and we outlined some of those high resolution and high probability targets that ZTEM target had identified. Interestingly enough, when we were out doing the work on the property, and subsequently, since we've got the property, last year in 2019, we did a drill program on it, And before, you can see some nice circles there, a black outline, and then a red outline and some pink outlines on that far west Z-TEM anomaly, it's called. And if you ignore that for a minute, we were doing some drilling before, because that's newer information that we've had just recently, late last year. And so with the Z-TEM targets, we were trying to decide what to do with them because they're huge. So we did some drilling to test the Regal mine, to test the Alco mine, and we got some good grab samples coming off that property. And I'll show you those numbers in a minute, but enough to say that 5.7 grams per ton gold and 4,410 grams per ton silver and high-grade lead, zinc, and tin as well. So some very good grades. And we're seeing the same kind of things in those drill core amounts from 2019. But interestingly enough, while we were doing all that work, the prospecting, reviewing old reports, looking at the soil anomalies and things around that area of that large target, we had a company that has some newer technology, acoustic technology it uses, and they actually phoned us. They said, look, we have some data on your property. I think you should know that you have a world-class anomaly on your property. Well, they had our attention, so we said, absolutely, give us the data. And when we plotted it on our property, it ended up being almost a perfect bullseye over top of that Z-TEM anomaly. So we've got two very convincing arguments from our geophysics that say that we've got a very large target. That target is 2.5 kilometers by 2.2 kilometers. And it's not us that's comparing it to the Sullivan mine, it's our geophysics. They have looked at and they have flown the targets, or the past production, the areas around the Sullivan mine. They've flown the areas up around the Imperial, which is the Reddick Creek project, which is silver, lead, zinc as well, and compared the geological signatures, and they're very similar to what we have on that property. So they're matching that up and making those comparisons, and we're excited to put a drill in that anomaly this year. So there's another picture of it, and you can see that the geology starts with some faulting as well that goes right through that anomaly, and we have the inflection points in the right spot. We have all of the surrounding mines in the right spot, high-grade veins, and lots of them. So this is an important Z-TEM anomaly picture that we actually have to show where our drill pads are going to go, and we already have them outlined from the geophysics report. We've got 2 drill holes that are going to go on the ends of this and they're telling us that we're going to drill 750 meter holes and that we should hit this at about 350 meters. And so the basement of it is far deeper than that, but the holes should get us into that 750 meters and test the anomaly very convincingly. So that's kind of an indication of where we're going to go with the drill. Another base metal target picture, again, it shows the faulting very good. These are the drill holes in green. This is the side view of it. They've given us tons of detail on what this anomaly looks like. Not only do we have the very convincing Sullivan-like deposit, no, not a deposit, an anomaly there, we also have another target that we're interested in going after, and that is on the northwest side of that property. It's a gold and silver target. So again, I said the geology changes a little bit, and so we have the gold and silver target on that end of things. Lots of faulting going through there. The right geology from the J&L property, similar geology and signatures coming down from that. So, and that target is 1.3 kilometers by 1.5 kilometers. So very, very big targets. All the geology, all of the geophysics is pointing towards the likelihood that they're there. So we're excited to do that. Again, that's a little closer image on the gold and silver target, all of the inflection points, all of the faulting going through there, some of the other past producing mines that are there as well. This is our sampling program. Again, I told you a little bit about the highlights of our sampling program. That geology is everywhere. You don't have to go very far to pick those rocks up and see that there's very, very high grade, 4,410 grams per ton silver, lots of other polymetallic metals with it as well. Now, our company, who leads it? So I'm, as I said, Rob Edwards. I've been in the business for 15 years. Darren Blaney. Sean Pinnell is actually a driller, so we get great rates on drilling, and he's a very solid businessman. And again, another director there. One of the really good opportunities that we've had in the last couple months here is to have Mr. Ronnie Stoferle. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he is he manages a fund out of Liechtenstein, and he writes the gold report that I think is one of the best that we've had. It's the gold standard of gold research, and that quote's by the Wall Street Journal. He has a great network of people over in Europe, and he started to tell the story for Affinity, and we're getting some great response from him and from his investors as well. So let me give you a little highlight. So we've been through what I think is exciting. You know, I told my wife when I was preparing for this presentation that we had something that was very close to what the Sullivan mine was, and she says, "Is there any way you can make this project or this presentation more exciting?" I thought that was pretty exciting that we had something that was close to the Sullivan mine. So obviously she's not as interested in this world as I am. We have massive geophysical targets. We have on that property good geology, past producing mines, historical reserves that are non-43-101 compliant, but show that we have enough of that geology to put together those kind of reserves. We're in the Kootenay Arc Trend. There's lots of good neighbors there. We have an opportunity to see the geology of our neighbors and other projects that are around us and compare those and have an opportunity to see what's really on our property. We have assays from an 1,800-meter drill program that are pending. Should be back in the next week or so, so we'll look forward to them. We are seeing the same kind of metals and metallurgy in that core as we saw in the grab samplers. So we're looking for some good grades out of those as well and expect that to be the case. We only have 33 million shares outstanding. 85% are held by management and close business associates. We're a new company. We haven't marketed. This is the time for Affinity to go forward. We've got lots of upside in the stock. We've got lots of good opportunity in our project, in our targets that are there. If we do hit that Sullivan mine, everybody will be in for a very nice return on their investment. So I'm Rob Edwards. I'm from Affinity Metals. We trade on the TSX Venture Exchange and under the ticker symbol AFF. If you want to look at our private placement, it is still open. We were closed about half of the $1 million that we're raising, and Anne-Marie or Scott will be able to help you with that. I've got to run for a plane ride after this, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Rob. Ladies and gentlemen, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and ask Rob any questions you may have for him, and someone will get back to you in the next day or two. Our next speaker is the President and CEO of AzurRX. Please welcome Mr. James Saperstein.
AzurRX is a gastroenterological company. We have a product that's going to compete in the pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy category, or PERT. Some of these products are made, well, most of them are made from pig pancreas. We're going to be an extract from yeast and regenerative medicine humanized pancreatic enzyme. Hi, my name is James Saperstein. I'm the President and CEO of AzurRX. We trade on NASDAQ and our symbol is AzurRX. We believe we have the therapy that could revolutionize the exocrine pancreatic enzyme insufficiency market, or EPI as we like to refer to it. We have a product that's made from yeast enzymes, and we believe it's going to revolutionize the market. The market for EPI is fairly sizable. It ranges in the US from $1.4 billion to $2.3 billion worldwide. And our forecasts show that our revenue streams can be as high as $400 to $500 million per year globally. And basically, when you look at our competitors, they're trading at 3 to 4 times their sales revenue. So if you look at our current share price, we are extremely undervalued at this point. We've protected our intellectual property with a strong family of patents. We are currently looking at 2 indications. One is cystic fibrosis, the other is chronic pancreatitis. And moving forward, we're really protected through 2028 and beyond, well into 2035. So we feel very strongly about the products we're developing. These next 2 quarters are going to be very exciting for AzurRX. Number one, it's a great time to invest because we have a very strong patent family, as I expressed before. We also are looking at 2 indications, chronic pancreatitis and cystic fibrosis. And 3, the market is quite sizable. It's well over $2 billion. We have some clinical trial data sets that are going to read out in 2021 and 2020. But the next 2 quarters, you'll see several press releases and data readouts on both our monotherapy trial and our combination trial. This is the time to invest in AzurRX. Once again, we are traded on NASDAQ under the ticker symbol AzurRX. Hello everyone, my name is James Saperstein. I'm very happy to be here to present AzurRX to all of you. Thanks for your attention and agreeing to listen to our presentation today. Our first slide is really a company disclaimer. As you know, we're a publicly traded company. We're on NASDAQ, so you'll be hearing some things here today which may or may not be in other presentations, so keep that in mind. Let me just go through the investment highlights. So for those of you who are following along, we're on slide number 3. We are a publicly traded company which really in the GI space. We're targeting cystic fibrosis and chronic pancreatitis patients. We have a product called MS-1819, which is a recombinant lipase treatment for exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI, as we like to call it. We're addressing a very large global market in excess of $2.3 billion. And we really are a substitute for what is porcine pancreatic enzyme replacement therapy, or PERTs. We are made from yeast enzymes, and we are here to replace the pork problem that we have with some of these enzymes. There is a shortage of pork around the world, but also there's antigenicity associated with pork problems, and we are going to bring in the first alternative. What I like to talk about in my past, and I'll talk about my career in a second, but I started out with Eli Lilly, and back in 1984, we launched the very first product, human insulin, which was competing against insulin that had been around for 80, 90 years, pork insulin and beef insulin. At that time, there was the argument, well, why bother? Why bother with human insulin? Well, now, fast forward 30-something years, we are 99.9% of the market is human insulin, because why would you want to use an animal-based product with all its antigenicity, all those genetic issues that come along with it, when you're going to have humanized product? And for AzurRX, MS-1819 will be the very first humanized product on the market, and that's what we have. We've established proof of concept in chronic pancreatitis already. I'll talk to that in our further slides. We also have 2 studies in cystic fibrosis. One has been completed in our phase 2B in September of 2019. We are in the middle of one, a combination study right now, and we are about to initiate another one. We have a very good team with established track record. Let me introduce the team that's on the next slide. We have Martin Cruson that does our corporate communications and our investor relations strategy, and basically our chief operating officer. We have Dan Schneiderman, who came to us in January. He's our new CFO. Dan has extensive experience in the biotech arena. Our chief medical officer is Jim Pennington. I've known Jim a very long time, well over 30 odd years. I knew him when he was a professor at the Harvard Medical School, infectious diseases, but Jim shifted over and started working in cystic fibrosis over 30 years ago. He came to AzurRX a couple of years ago from a company called Anthera and has extensive experience in cystic fibrosis, and is one of the true pioneers and clinical development leaders in our field. Myself, 37 years in the industry, as I mentioned, Eli Lilly before, then Hoffman LaRoche, Bristol Myers Squibb, and been part of Big Pharma for 17 years in a lot of different types of programs and jobs, and ranging from sales, marketing, commercialization, licensing. And then I became a bit of a turnaround artist. I went to a company that no one had ever heard of at the time called Gilead Sciences. Many of you have heard of it now. It's the top biotech company in the world. But when I joined them, Gilead was not in great shape. They had failed at the FDA with their flagship product at the time, Adesivir. My job was to put Gilead on the map in terms of HIV and bring people back to the company who didn't want to work with the company. So I was in charge of the global launch of their flagship product at the time, Viriad, and then helped to structure the deal for what became Truvada. I left there to go another turnaround situation called Serono. Serono, I became the general manager in the United States and turned that business around, going from 26th in business unit contribution of 29 companies to number 1 in the world for Serono. Then I started venturing out and starting my own companies. The first company I founded was Tobira Therapeutics. We eventually sold it to Allergan for $1.7 billion, and then got involved in a couple of other turnarounds. Aliqua which we turned around and sold a piece of it to Celgene. Likewise, joining AzurRX this past October, we had a situation where the stock was really not performing very well. I replaced the founding CEO who moved on to another good opportunity for himself. And sometimes you need to bring in a different mechanic to fix the company. So we're well on our way. We fixed the balance sheet. We've got capital in the company. Our clinical studies are coming along nicely, and we've hit every single milestone. So I'm pretty proud of the work that the team has done. Moving on to the next slide. Here you see exocrine pancreatic insufficiency for those following along. So we have two clear indications that we're going for. One is cystic fibrosis, where we have 30,000 patients in the United States alone. It's really more of a Western society indication. You'll see a lot of patients in the US, you'll see a lot of patients in Western Europe, you won't see a lot of patients around the world. That's where chronic pancreatitis comes in. It's a huge, although it's small, about 90,000 patients in the United States, but huge outside the United States, especially in Asia, where you see a lot of pancreatitis that comes from cancer, that comes from alcoholism, that comes from hepatitis infections. So we truly have a couple of shots on goal, which are imperative for a small company like ours. So when you look at the market, which is the next slide, the main two players in the market are Creon, which is a product that is manufactured and sold by AbbVie, which is a very large pharmaceutical company. And the second largest product is Zempep. Zempep used to be part of Allergan. For those of you who watch acquisitions, AbbVie just acquired Allergan earlier this year, although the transaction hasn't been closed yet. And basically, Allergan had to divest of Zempep. So Nestle, which is it's the chocolate company, Nestle in Europe, has purchased Zempep for its nutrient division. Zempep sells about $230 million in the United States and a lot more elsewhere. And Creon, which is AbbVie's product, is well over $1 billion in sales in the United States. This market is what we call the branded generic. It's very hard for generic drugs to make it into the marketplace. The level of safety and efficacy to reach that is a very high ground to reach, because basically what they take is pigs, they take their pancreases, they grind them up, they put them in these pellets and put them in capsules, and patients take anywhere from 40 to 48 capsules a day with their meals and with their snacks. What we're going to have is a yeast-derived, humanized regenerative medicine where we're going to put in Entera capsules, which I'll talk about that in a minute, and compete against it. So it's a much more natural product. We're not depending on the pig population. For those of you who are watching what's going on, at least in the United States, there's shortages in pigs, there's shortages in China. China, believe it or not, is going through a swine flu epidemic again, and that's going to increase the cost of some of these products. So we're really not dependent on that and can keep our drug costs down. So the marketplace, if you look at slide number 7, again, it's a multi-billion-dollar market. We expect that we could reach revenue streams of $400 to $500 million with our market share, and it's pretty much untapped. We're going to be the first product in the humanized space. So going to the next slide, we really believe MS-1819 will fulfill an unmet need. Again, it's recombinant. We're more stable. We don't have a limited supply chain. Our pill burden, which I did not talk about, is far less than the 40 to 48 that are currently being used. In fact, our pill burden is more to 8 to 16 pills per day. It's still a lot. I'm a pharmacist. I can tell you compliance is a big issue. So think about it. How many of these kids, especially the kids with cystic fibrosis, they have pulmonary issues and other things. They don't like taking these many medications. So anything that we can cut down for them will improve their outcomes. So we're really excited by that as well. You see also, I should state on this slide, you see the amount of slides, the amount of capsules. Not only are our capsules less in quantity, but our capsules are a lot smaller. So from a compliance issue, it's a big plus for us. Moving forward, this is what our clinical trial programs look like. I won't spend a lot of time on this because I have a couple of other slides that show you, but we do have our first study, which was done in chronic pancreatitis, that was done for 11 patients in France, Austria, and New Zealand. That showed that we had efficacy. Our dose at that time was 2.2 grams. So we proved safety and efficacy in pancreatitis, and then we bridged over to cystic fibrosis. Now, what happened in our first trial in phase 2b? The FDA only allowed us to do a dose of 2.2 grams. Why? Because these are cystic fibrosis patients, and the FDA is very concerned about their safety. So you see, that was called a phase 2 option 1 study. It was 32 patients. We did 2.2, and when we presented those results in September 2019, our share price dropped. Why? Because there was a little bit of confusion. What we showed is we showed that on the intent to treat, we had a CFA of 56% versus the PERTs that we compared ourselves to of 86%. Now, the market looked at that as a negative. We saw that as a positive, because what that shows is that the drug was underdosed at 2.2 grams, and we still had a positive CFA. So this is basically like a proof of concept. Even at a low dose, we achieved almost what the PERTs achieved. So we saw that as a very positive connotation, but people that are unsophisticated confuse the data. What's important here is that the PERTs have 3 different enzymes, one of them being a lipase and a protease, and we showed, because our something called a coefficient of nitrogen absorption of CNA, which was very high compared to the PERTs in the study, we don't need a protease in order to get the results. And that is very, very significant. So going to the next slide, which is slide 11, what did we learn? We learned 2.2 grams is safe. We went to the FDA. The FDA now, in the study we're starting in 2020, is allowing us to go to 4.4 grams. However, we're also going into something called an enteric-coated capsule. And I'll demonstrate what that means in a second. So we're very confident we're going to get very, very good activity. Why is the enteric-coated capsule important? Next slide, 12. Because we know that the drug is best absorbed in a higher pH, meaning in the stomach, when we delivered that drug, half the drug, the 2.2 grams, was chewed up in a low pH in the stomach. So we need to make sure that stomach gets to the smaller intestine, or the duodenum, as we call it. Although in Canada it might be duodenum, but we say duodenum. And if we can preserve the drug in the duodenum for a longer period of time, we'll get better absorption. And we're confident that's going to get us much better CFAs and much better CNAs. And we are also doubling the dose at 4.4. So we're starting that study very, very soon. Stay tuned. There'll be a press release on that. The FDA just gave us an approval to get that started, and we're confident we're going to get some terrific results. So we like to call this slide 13, which is our staircase slide. This is really our whole clinical development program. You can see where the plus sign is here to the right of the slide. This is where we are right now in the middle of phase 2b. Both with the monotherapy trial. We also have what's called the combination trial, which is ongoing right now in Europe. And that trial is taking our drug, adding it to a PERT for patients who are failing on PERT. And we have so far several patients who have completed that trial. The pandemic has slowed a few things down, but we're still on target to make our timeline. So as soon as Europe opens up, we'll finish that trial. And we've seen outstanding results. We're very, very excited. We'll have top-line data on that hopefully this summer, and definitely by the end of this year. So look for those are very big interim results that we'll get out to our investors this year. And that's really what brought me to AzurRX, is I saw those trial results, at least an inkling of it before I joined, and I was very excited, and I think you will be as well. Intellectual property. We're covered through September 2028. We have the Hatch-Waxman law in the FDA, which allows us to get an extension for 5 years to 2033. We also are regenerative medicine, and we're technically a biological. So the FDA grants an additional 12 years of exclusivity. So that should take us well past 2033. And the EMA for biologicals also gives us an extra 10 years. So IP is not a problem. We have 2 indications. It's really exciting. We also have this enteric-coated capsule that I mentioned before, and there's also an opportunity possibly to file for IP extension on that, which will give us another year and a half. Moving on, we have a lot of analyst coverage. If you look at slide 15, we just put out a new research paper by Argus Research. Dawson, we have several banks, Dawson James, H.C. Wainwright, the Maxim Group, Roth Capital. We haven't even done financings with these banks except for H.C. Wainwright, but yet the analysts think enough about our stock to do our coverage. So the price targets range anywhere from $2 to $8 at this point, but that's up to them to recommend that. That's not anything we give, but we certainly know and understand that we're undervalued at this point. So, financial overview of the company. We were founded in 2014. The company did an IPO in 2016. Our NASDAQ ticker is AzurRX. Our market cap right now, currently today, is $21 million. 2 days ago, we were at $16 million. When I joined, we were at $12 million. We're starting to do better. As you see, things are starting to ankle up a little bit, slowly but surely. We have 27 million shares outstanding. We have some warrants that are out there that we're busy trying to clean up, but that brings us to a fully diluted 44 million shares. Our current stock price today, as I do this presentation, is 78 cents. Hopefully it will keep climbing once all of you get in. I should say, by the way, too, we also have a lot of liquidity in our stock. We trade normally between 200,000 to 300,000 shares a day on NASDAQ. So, in conclusion, why should you invest in the company? We have this recombinant lipase technology that's going to compete against really two main competitors, which are inferior. I can't say it any other way. They're porcine based. Now, are we going to launch this on our own? No, we're going to seek a partner to do that and launch against these large companies because we'll have a superior product. Who knows? They may acquire us themselves. We are addressing the global market. I believe this is a clear unmet need for us. We have very, very strong IP. As I mentioned before, we're pursuing 2 indications in chronic pancreatitis and CF, cystic fibrosis in monotherapy. And the third one eventually will be combination therapy in cystic fibrosis. So not 1, not 2, but 3 shots on goal with one product, which we already know is safe and effective. This is going to be an easy lift. This is not an oncology product that makes it to phase 3 and fails. This is a product that we know works. And as far as the team, we have an established track record. Several of us have had exits where we brought some good return on investments to our investors. And I'm hoping that you become an investor as well. Thank you very much for listening. This is James Saperstein at AzurRX, AzurRX on NASDAQ. Have a great day.
Thank you, James. Ladies and gentlemen, please click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and ask James any questions you may have for him, and someone will answer you in the next day or two. And now, a word from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today, and please join us again next month at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the last Wednesday of each month.